So, you're designing a character from another culture. You might be designing a character for Dungeons and Dragons or a personal project, and so far your character design is looking kinda generic. Let me pull up an example. This little guy is called a Tokay. This species first showed up in The Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Seasons. They are some sort of humanoid lizard with a big belly, but they don't really have too many more distinguishing physical features. I think that The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom do a phenomenal job updating classic Zelda races with more depth and character design that really helped flesh out each race's culture. Today, we're going to break down how you can take a fairly generic and non-descriptive design and boost them to be much more rich. Before we get started on updating this Tokay design, let's look at what Zelda did to update the other races so well in Breath of the Wild. First, let's look at the Zora. These humanoid fish people used to look very different in previous games, having a mostly blue and white color scheme with almost no individuation or anatomical differences. This was likely due to the limitations of the software, but as the games developed, these characters became more unique. Breath of the Wild, in contrast, goes full force. The Zora begin to have different shapes based on different fish, including rays, sharks, and whales. Already the silhouettes of these Zora are developing phenomenal character. Another major development are that the Zora begin to wear accessories. I really appreciate that they decided to not dress the Zora in clothing. As a waterbound race, clothing doesn't make too much sense. It would just be extra fabric that would make them less hydrodynamic. Instead, Zelda opts to adorn the Zora with metallic and gemstone accessories. These are excellent choices because they won't be tarnished by the water and air exposure, and they won't affect the Zora's swimming capabilities. Even the placement of these accessories are made with fluid motion in mind. Excellent design upgrades. As far as the detailing, the Zoras really seem to lean into fine filigree with large, bright gemstones. This kind of evokes the idea of elegance and flow, maybe even foam and water droplets. You can also see a few hints of the spiritual stone of water in some of the design aspects. We also note that they prefer silver and gold metals and deep, saturated, rich colors. Very opulent. In general, their clothing really evokes the idea that the Zora are refined, intelligent, and wealthy. Major aristocracy vibes. Next, let's check out the Rito. There's been a lot of design changes, even in the lore, since the beginning of the Rito race in the Legend of Zelda series. Originally, they were a divergent evolution of the Zora. These fish people took to the skies in order to find new habitats after the Great Flood of Wind Waker. However, these characters neither looked like fish or really like birds, instead opting to be humans with a beak, nose, and wings. There was obviously a lot of design left on the table. I really like the design choices they made for the Rito in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They took a similar design approach to the Zora and went full humanoid bird with multiple species variations. We have these somewhat hawk-looking designs, owls, and my personal favorite, the tropical bird design of our deeply missed bard, Cass. Seriously, why is he not in the newest game? The Rito wear minimal amounts of lightweight fabric clothing, lightweight leather straps, and light wooden accents. All of these things are practical for a flying creature, nothing big or bulky that would ruin their aerodynamics or make them too heavy to fly. Another neat detail is that these are all materials we would naturally see birds drawn to in real life, typically things that we would even see them incorporate into their nests. It's a nice little touch. As for the color design and detailing, most of the Rito are wearing earth tone colors, really keeping them close to that natural vibe. And the smaller details of their clothing's tailoring evokes the idea of feathers. The Rito do a good job of never getting far away from their natural bird aesthetic. I think that the overall tone we can pull from their design aesthetic is kind of like an advanced tribal. Alright, finally, let's talk about the Goron race, because honestly, I kind of wish we got more from them aesthetically. It seems that the Zelda team decided that the Goron were pretty much good as they've been in the past, opting to give them clothing in the form of some sort of fundoshi loincloth and twisted headbands or other extremely basic traditional Japanese clothing. Even though this is pretty minor in terms of design upgrades, there is still a lot that we can draw from this from a design analysis point of view. This extremely simple version of adornment implies that the Goron don't value decoration or status markers the way most cultures do. We see gemstones that are roughly cut, some basic pottery, and some crude metalwork, but other than that, it's pretty basic. They seem to do their work and otherwise relax around a campfire or a hot spring. If I were to take a guess, I would assume that this is a result of the fact that they eat rocks and therefore rarely have food shortages. Instead of using this free time to get super into architecture or science like most cultures do when they don't have to worry about food, they just take it easy, I guess. And you know what? I have to kind of respect them for that. Sometimes we see them in mining gear. I guess they do work, but they really have clear work-life division. And you know what? Again, respect. One area that we do see some personality in the Goron is that they are given individual hairstyles and some small body variation. But honestly, again, I don't think that they pushed really far enough. In fact, as I look back at previous designs of Goron, I noticed that Twilight Princess did a phenomenal job updating these character designs. Not quite sure how I feel about the rock nipples, but otherwise I really love their choice to imply that there's either some sort of natural or drawn-on body paint for their culture. Since this culture seems to prefer a more nude approach, I would love the idea of them getting into self-adornment through body paint. When we do see the Goron wearing clothing besides the basic loincloth, we will only really see them in a swath of fabric or some blocky geometric armor with chains. This shape language does do a good job of implying the idea of crude rocks, but I still really feel like the Goron were left out when it came to Breath of the Wild's phenomenal design upgrades for the races. As far as color and detailing in their small bit of clothing that we see, I noticed that the colors are very simple and straightforward, and the designs are just about as simple as well. The Goron are not the type to overthink. They don't make their life any harder than it needs to be, and they settle for good enough. This is reflected in their clothing and hairstyles. I think that they did a good job of conveying character in this, but I still wish that we could see a little more personality. But let's go ahead and get to the point of this video. Let's take a race that the Zelda franchise hasn't touched in nearly 2 decades, the Tokay. When we meet the Tokay, Link washes up on the shore of their island in the middle of the southeastern Sea of Labrina. While he is knocked out, the Tokay steal Link's items and scatter them about the island. Link needs to go around the island and get his items back through multiple means, but largely through bartering. So let's round up some of the details that we know about the Tokay race. 1. They are tropical reptiles, meaning they are cold-blooded and likely eat similar diets to our real-life island reptiles. 2. They are scavengers or thieves, depending on your perspective. I lean on the scavenger angle due to their otherwise complete lack of ill will. 3. Judging on our interactions with them, they are not too intelligent or advanced. 4. They have large, bulbous, protruding bellies, which they often hold in their hands. And 5. They don't appear to have advanced architecture or technology. Anything they use would be extremely accessible. Okay, now that we've broken down the cultural factors that we can extrapolate from the gameplay, let's go ahead and start making some educated leaps in logic to conceptualize how these characters could be pushed forward into a more rich depiction, like the ones in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. First off, as I get started, I wanted to point out that I decided to embrace the proportions that we see in almost every character design in the new Zelda games. There seems to be a major push to have very long torsos and very short legs in all of the character designs. In fact, only the Gerudo seem to be spared from this design choice. So let's lean into the design commonality and give our Tokay similar proportions. As far as the lizard look went, I decided that I would draw from monitor lizards and iguanas. Both of these island-dwelling reptiles have the girth that leads well to a humanoid design. And the spines of an iguana had a lot of character opportunities that could be given variations to make the Tokay stand out from each other. Next, I really wanted to make sure that I captured the vibe that I noticed in the games. The Tokay are kind of dumb. I wanted to give him a wall-eyed stare and a large, dopey, expressive mouth. Not only does this give him a ton of appeal, but in my mind, these creatures would be the type who might eat entire eggs in one bite, so he would need a pretty big mouth for that. When it comes to their decorations, I figured that I would follow the Zora and largely utilize accessories rather than full-on clothing. Since lizards often eat birds, I thought that it would be cool if they utilized feathers in a lot of their accessories. That's why I decided to go with this feathered cowl and shoulder adornment. In my mind, this Tokay is somewhat higher class. Maybe it's the lost champion that forgot to show up on time. And as far as other accessories, I thought it would be cool to give them dangling wooden jewelry. Wood would be plentiful on an island and wouldn't require too advanced of technology to manufacture. I feel like the Tokay village would also be really neat if it was filled with wooden wood chimes to take advantage of the ocean breeze. Finally, I thought it would be really fun to make some wild extrapolations about their characteristic potbelly. In the game art, I noticed that they seem to always be holding on to their bellies. Seeing as a lot of the Tokay are coded as male, I didn't figure they were all pregnant. Instead, I thought it would be interesting if the Tokay believed themselves to be the holders of the energy of the universe. I love the idea of these dopey creatures believing themselves to be such superior beings in the universe, holding the literal power of the sun in their stomach. As reptiles, the Tokay would naturally find themselves drawn to sunlight to heat their metabolic functions. I imagine this deep reliance on the sun would develop nicely into religious concepts. The Tokay would feel the sun's warmth in their bellies and attribute it to literally storing the power of the sun in their bellies. They cradle their large stomachs and even begin to start adorning their bodies with body paint, painting symbolic suns onto their stomachs to celebrate their racial privilege of holding the sun in their bodies. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe they're right. With that, I just go through and start applying these concepts to my illustration, which brings us to the final result. We've now taken the simple design and flat characterization of the Tokay, and we've expanded its design into one that has culture and personality and could easily be turned into multiple variations to express individuality. I personally would love to see another Breath of the Wild style video game where we got more of the Zelda races, like the Tokay, the Subrosians, maybe even the animal companions of the Oracle games, like Ricky, Dimitri, and Moosh. So that's just about it. I hope that you've enjoyed joining me today as we explored how to design characters with rich individuality and culture in mind. This can be applied to personal projects, D&D, whatever you want it for. I would love to see what you guys come up with. So please comment below if you learned anything new from this, or if you have any Zelda races that you would like to see me modernize. Also, feel free to DM me with your own culturally rich character designs. On Instagram, I'm at Inksmith, and on X, I am at InksmithArt. Also, if you like my work, feel free to check out my Etsy account. Link is in the description below. Alright, have a creative day, everybody. Inksmith out.